Okay, so now this is going to be a continuation to the storyline of the young wrestler based in New Jersey who was compelled to cut his dreadlocks due to him deciding that he was going to willfully ignore the memo that he received a week before, telling him that either he was going to have to cut his dreadlocks or wear an appropriate piece of headgear to cover up his dreadlocks for the match. Of course, the super liberal media at large and the super liberal sports media have grabbed onto the storyline through the so-called holiday season. And now the update to the story is once again that the referee is going to be suspended until further notice while they perform an inquiry into his possible motivations, quote unquote, as to why he was trying to enforce the rules of the match. And I do think that it's appropriate in this case because allegedly he has a history of being racist. According to the story, he was racist to one of his fellow officials before, who happened to be a so-called black man. So if for no other reason other than that, he certainly should be placed under a far higher deal of scrutiny. But once again, to me, this is a non-story. Anybody who watches combat sports or who has been engaged in combat sports knows that you're not allowed to engage in a fight, at least in most states or most countries or what have you, with hair flopping around that could whip your opponent in the eye, so on and so forth. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
A high school referee who ordered a young black wrestler to either cut his dreadlocks or forfeit the match is the focus of a civil rights investigation this morning. Video of the incident appears to show teenager Andrew Johnson agreeing to the cut. Of course, that doesn't make it right. The video has been viewed nearly 15 million times, and DeMarco Morgan is here to show us how many are questioning whether race played a role in the referee's decision. DeMarco, good morning.
Good morning.
Once again, the only way to prove that quote-unquote race played a role in the referee's decision is if there were white boys rolling around out there on the wrestling mat with long hair. That's the only way to prove that.
Morning, guys. This is an awful and disturbing story, no matter how you look at it.
I agree, this is an awful and disturbing story. But the most disturbing part of it is that once again, wokety-woke so-called liberal blacks are trying to please their masters, the wokety-woke liberal Caucasians, by running on TV and trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. But you guys won't talk about what's going on in the households in these so-called black communities where the black man is not even allowed to run his own household without being forced to engage in World War IV, 5, 6, and 7 with a super liberal black woman who wants to chop his head off. You guys won't talk about the 15 million abortions since 1973 in the last 45 years. You guys won't talk about that type of stuff because that will be you trying to quote-unquote tell women what to do. And you can't do that. So instead, we're going to talk about some dude who had to cut his dreadlocks.
The superintendent of the school says referee Alan Maloney is banned from matches until further review. But this morning, he is being slammed for this decision. And the question is, what was the motivating factor?
The motivating factor was the rule book.
It's almost hard to watch as high schools.
No, it's not really hard to watch at all. I mean, there's a saying that you have to suffer the consequences for your actions or lack thereof. I think that this may have been a little bit more suspicious had he not received a warning a week prior to the match. He decided that he was going to come to the match anyway. So what is his excuse for that? Did he not read the memo? Did he not receive it? Did a parent have it and neglected to give it to him? Did he just not care? Could he not afford the newer piece of headgear or the appropriate headgear that he would need to cover up his hair? I mean, I need to know that.
Student Andrew Johnson is forced to make an impromptu decision, either cut his hair or face disqualification.
His hair's always been like that, so for them to now bring it up is out of line.
Well, that's cool, but, if you join the military, I'm not sure if that's still the rule, but you as a female, if you join the military, even if your hair's still like that, they would force you to cut it down.
I don't think it was right. I think, a person expressed themselves in different ways and everybody's different.
Absolutely. So you know what? People should just be able to go out in the street butt naked because they want to express themselves. Why put on clothes? It's 98 degrees outside, right? You can say that next August. It's 98 degrees outside. I want to be naked. I don't feel like being confined. I'm not embarrassed about my body. Why are you trying to oppress my expression? Right? Why can't you just walk around with your shit swinging in the air? I mean, why the hell not?
Johnson ultimately cut his hair, but the forced decision has many crying foul. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy tweeted he was deeply disturbed by the incident.
Oh man, please. The only reason why you chiming in is because you have to say something. that referee's probably your homeboy. You guys are probably drinking buddies. Get the fuck out of here.
Director Ava DuVernay, who has long embraced her locks,
and who also hates black men, Ava DuVernay, another wokety woke pro-black female, super liberal black woman, another affiliate of the Black Lesbians Matter movement who really hates so-called black men. She's going to chime in because this is an opportunity for her to appear more woke. That's all this is about.
Said watching the video wrecked her, calling it the criminalization of what grows from him, the theft of what was his.
Well, I have news for you, Miss DuVernay. In life, depending on the form that you're in, you are going to have to adjust your physical appearance. There are people who go on job interviews. They have a tattoo on their neck. They might wear a turtleneck for the interview. They might wear a collared shirt for the interview and button it up all the way to the top because they're aware of appearances. There are people who might have a scraggly beard and they cut it off for their job interview because that's a part of life, especially if he was warned ahead of time. That, to me, as well as what it blatantly states in the wrestling rule book or the wrestling code for that state, is a non-story.
I've never seen someone that has had to cut their hair on the mat.
So in other words, what you're saying is that you know that there's a rule that tells you that you have to wear your hair a certain way, and you know that wrestlers have had to cut their hair prior to the match, but you're saying you've never seen somebody who had to cut their hair on the mat. So what you wanted for the referee or the official in question to allow him to wrestle even though he'd already been warned about what would happen. I got you.
Olympic gold medalist and four-time world wrestling champion Jordan Burroughs says at the professional level, there are no rules that dictate personal appearance.
There's no way that someone should have this much control over an individual's identity within a sport.
Let me rewind this back for a second because the narrator stated something that I need to have verified.
I would
incident. Director Ava DuVernay, who has long embraced her locks, said watching the video wrecked her, calling it the criminalization of what grows from him.
Brothers, females like this are such opportunists. When I say females like this, I'm talking about super liberal ones, like this person right here, Ava DuVernay. She's an actress in this narrative. There's nothing sincere about her statements. She's woke, meaning she'll chime in when it's time to promote chaos, to amplify her profile, because that's part of her false demeanor or false characterization of herself that she wants to have pushed out to the masses. That she's somebody who's going to get involved and encourage people to express themselves how they want. When it comes to the super liberal black woman, you could express yourself how you want unless it's time for you to tell her about herself, because they exist outside of the order and of the structure that is going to be necessary for improvements to occur. And you'll notice that the super liberal black woman, she likes to hear critique and criticism of everybody except for herself. Because once again, as I've been telling you brothers for the longest time, the super liberal black woman, and 95 to 98% of all these black women are super liberal. They believe that they are their own race. They are their own racial demographic. They believe that.
The theft of what was his.
I've never seen someone that has had to cut their hair on the mat.
So once again, you've seen people who had to cut their hair, just not on the mat. And he was not supposed to cut his hair on the mat. He was supposed to cut his hair at home a week before or purchase the appropriate headgear.
Olympic gold medalist and four-time world wrestling champion Jordan Burroughs says at the professional level, there are no rules that dictate personal appearance.
I have a hard time believing that, but once again, one of you brothers can verify that for me if there's anybody out there who's wrestled professionally or what have you. That there are no rules and regulations to how you wear your hair in a professional wrestling match. As I've stated already, I know for a fact that in a professional boxing match, you cannot come into the ring with a big beard. You can't come into the ring with dreadlocks flopping all around. You have to put it up in a bun in some way and secure it. That's a fact.
There's no way that someone should have this much control over an individual's identity within a sport. I would say race was involved, but I'd also say a little bit of abuse of power, understanding that he could influence the dynamics of the match.
Once again, the only reason why it's valid to investigate the referee is because he has a history of overt racism. And I'm gonna hit you with something. When it comes to most so-called white people or people of other races, I expect racialism. But it's incumbent upon them to maintain their professionalism. And at the end of the day, what the referee stated was consistent with what was in the rule book.
Johnson has wrestled this year without reprimand. While the New Jersey Division of Civil Rights is investigating the issue, there are still questions over what happened and why. In the end, Johnson won his match.
It was pretty courageous to see him do what he did. He understands that the dynamics of this case weren't all completely racially motivated, but it opened up a conversation for something way bigger than himself.
Yeah, if anything, that's what I've stated before. If you guys want the rule to be changed, then have them change the rule. People should be able to wrestle with big, long, floppy dreadlocks, and if you get whipped in the face, oh well. People should be able to wrestle with big, old, long beards, and they can rub it on the back of your neck until you say uncle, you know. You bring that over to boxing, you know. Just be able to come into the ring with big, huge beards. Whenever somebody tries to punch you in the beard, just raise up your chin, because you have that cushion there. Let it be a championship boxing match. You're fighting for the WBC heavyweight championship, and you can come into the ring with, with your dreadlocks swinging. Your walk-in song could be Willow Smith, I whip my hair back and forth. I don't know.
And we do want to point out this is not the first time wrestling referee Alan Maloney's name has been linked to controversy. In 2016, he was accused of using a racial slur against a black referee. It was reported he was suspended but overturned after an appeal.
Well, from what I understand, the black referee handled his business. He body slammed him.
We have reached out to Maloney for comment, but have not heard back from him. But guys, it's something to say about this guy. He should be commended because he put his team before himself in the midst of humiliation, and he still...
Did he? Putting his team before himself would have been to adhere to the memo that he received a week before. That would have been putting his team before himself. He caused a distraction by showing up to the match ill-prepared.
He still won.
You know, I have to say there had to be another solution, because to have your hair cut like that in a public forum sends a dangerous message that something is wrong with his hair, and of course there isn't.
No, the message that's sent is that he did not comply to the memo that he received. That's the message that was sent.
And I think that's dangerous when we're talking about a young black man being targeted like this.
Yeah, I know you guys care so much about young black men. That's why you spend all your time trying to teach these little black boys in school that Sally had two daddies and a woman is above you. You guys care so much about little black boys.
Yeah, a lot of questions about headgear in that case. DeMarco, thank you very much.
Now, did you see what she did there at the very end? She snuck that little comment about headgear in there because she knows that this whole narrative is bullshit. That was her way of saying, had he wore the appropriate headgear, none of this would have happened. But she had to say it in a very slick way. Let me rewind this back just a little bit.
Much.
Something is wrong with his hair, and of course there isn't. And I think that's dangerous when we're talking about a young black man being targeted like this.
Yeah, a lot of questions about headgear in that case. DeMarco.
Nobody mentioned the headgear the whole segment, but she threw that in there because that was her way of saying, look, there's a portion of this story that you guys are not mentioning. He had the option of wearing the appropriate headgear, and he chose to not do so for whatever reason. That's why I would like to hear his testimony in regards to this issue. Why did you not wear the headgear that they stipulated that you were supposed to wear? But anyway, we'll see how much longer they try to drag this storyline out. Peace.